So we come today to this Feast of the Epiphany where God reveals himself to the nations. We see the star in the sky, and that shows the Magi where Jesus is. They traveled long distances over difficult roads and dangerous country in order to find what? Did they even know what they were looking for? But they knew somehow it was the newborn King of the Jews. But why would that make any difference to these people from a long distance? They're not Jews. And yet they came and searched, night after night after night, following a star in the sky. And yet, the people to whom he came as king, they didn't come looking for him. People of Jerusalem, I looked on Google Maps this morning. Jerusalem to Bethlehem, to Church of the Nativity, is about 6 miles, more or less. That's not that far. And yet, they didn't come searching. The only one of them who wanted to know where he was Herod. And Herod weren't going to worship. They were so close, and yet so far. And yet these people who came from long distances came to see our God. No! Yes. They came to see our God. And Almighty God invites us. So often we become so used to the things of Almighty God that we forget to go and search him out. I'm thinking about the story that Matthew Kelly told you. I've told this before and you've probably read it yourself, but it's always good to be reminded of that priest that had been in China for a while, came back to the United States, became a priest, and then went back to visit friends again in China. And while he was there, he didn't tell them he was a priest because in China, of course, there's a lockdown on all that religion stuff. And so one night as he's in this house, he hears all this commotion going by, and he goes out and says, "What's going on?" And person knew that they could trust him and said, "We're going to the wall." He says, what do you mean we're going to the wall? He says, "Come and see." And so they go out, and there's these crowds that are going secretively through the woods to find this small wall, maybe an hour's journey away by foot. And there they see people gathering up in trees and all these things, and this one person goes and lifts a brick out of the wall and pulls out the Eucharist. And everyone falls to their knees and worships for an hour. At the end of the hour, they put the Eucharist back in the hole in the wall, put the bricks over it, and then walk back. And the priest asks his friends with whom he was staying, "What was this about?" "Well, we haven't had a priest in years. And this is the Eucharist from the last Mass that we had celebrated. And every once in a while we come and adore. But if any of us are caught by the authorities, we will be put into prison and maybe even worse. That's why we have the people in the trees to guard." The next day he told them that he was a priest, and so they all went to the wall and he celebrated the first Mass in however long. That these people would travel these long distances to find our God, to come to adore him. I think about friends of mine who are priests in Uganda. And they talk about how people will walk 6 hours in order to come to Mass. 6 hours. Can you imagine that? Having to walk 6 hours to come to Mass. You can drive, if St. Patrick's is closed for whatever reason, you could drive to Wyndham or Salem or Hudson or Dracut, all within 10 minutes to find another church. And yet these people walk 6 hours because finding God is so important to them. And we who are 6 miles away, as it were, it's just another thing we do. Maybe we become too familiar with the things of our faith, and we forget. The answer to all of our problems is right here in our God. The answer to all of our struggles is right here in coming to our God. That our God comes down to become that baby in the manger. And then He comes to us even smaller in the Eucharist. For us to adore. For us to become one with Him. So we have to ask ourselves, are we seeking God like the Magi? Or are we more like all those people in Jerusalem who, we're the chosen people. We don't need to go seeking after Him. If He comes to us, that's great, but we don't need to go looking. Where are our hearts? May we be set afire through the intercession of these great Magi, so that we may seek God with all our heart, mind, soul, and strength.